Hello and welcome back to a review from the Bullens, and today it's the final whistle show. We're going to be unpacking the Brighton game and somewhat of a positive week, if you like, for Evertonians. And it's me, Luke Davis, and Paul Draper. So first of all, a positive week, but let's just talk about the 1-1 draw first. Like, coming out to the ground, were you thinking, obviously we would have taken a point before the game, but on the balance of play, do you think it was a fair result or unlucky?
I think once you're 1-0 up, deep into other time, it's always unlucky if you don't win the game or it's a mistake on your side. I think we could have probably defended that situation better. I think, especially better. I think he can really do much more to stop the cross. Pascal Grossi, he's done that plenty of times before, but he is so good at it with that. It is really hard to stop where he comes inside. He kind of does a few turns and he just whips the ball in. And unfortunately for us, we've got an overload at the back post. Lewis Dunk is rising above Ben Godfrey, and he just puts it in. It's a really good header, a really good finish from Dunk, who should have really scored from a corner in the first half. I think he missed a very big chance. But yeah, I think we'd have all took the point before the game. I think we had one or two half chances to maybe see a little thing better when he's 1-on-1. You got to hit the target for me at least. Jack Harrison at the end, that I still haven't seen it back, but I've heard he should probably maybe at least hit the target. The Corey's volley, he caught it as sweet as you can. He's just really, really, really unlucky that Tarek Lamptey somehow rose higher than anyone and he cleared that away. But take the point, move on. And obviously after the news that came out on Monday, it looks like a really, really good point against a team that hasn't lost at home all season in Brighton. And take that point, move and build on it.
Yeah, I think going into the game, I don't like saying this, you would have taken a point, but obviously being ahead so long, you think, we should really be seeing the game out. But again, if you look from a statistical perspective, they've had 23 shots, Brighton, and 7 on target with 65% possession, which you'd probably expect if you look at the styles of both teams. So, but I think on the balance of play, you from a neutral perspective, if you looked at it that way, it probably is a fair result. And now, obviously, we've just mentioned we've now got 4 points back. So, really, that's a really, really good point. Because it now takes us, I think, is it 4 above Luton?
5
above Luton, 1 above Forest.
5 above Luton, I think 1 above Forest, and Luton have got a game in hand.
Then you think, like, we're now 15th, we're above Brentford now as well, and no one was really speaking about Brentford as relegation contenders until maybe this week, last week. So I think it's a positive week to be in Everton, to be honest, and it's something that we've needed an uplift, and I think Dyche said last week, it's obviously on the players' minds as well, so now at least the players now know what they've got to do. We're in a better position.
You know where they stand.
Yeah, so do you think, obviously moving forward now, the players might play with a little bit more freedom? Not that Dyche is a team that we play with this expressive football, free-flowing football, but do you think now that edginess and nervousness maybe we did see at the end of the Brighton game, do you think that may pass?
I think a lot of the pressure will be off the players now. I think obviously, and off the crowd, the staff, everyone involved around Everton. I think you could tell probably Palace was the game where it seemed more obvious, where everyone was a bit tense, everyone was a bit nervous, a bit worried. And now if that game was, let's say, this weekend, you're 5 points clear, you think, okay, it's a game where Everton can target 3 points and pull away from the battle. But instead it was a 6-pointer where you needed wins, you needed points because you didn't know what was going to happen with the appeal, where your next win is going to come from, or anything like that. So I think a lot of the pressure will go now from in and around Everton. I think everyone will be much more calm, much more relaxed, in a much better mood. And that for me will translate on the pitch. I think players will now know where they stand for, at least for a month. Let's say at least for 4 or 5 weeks until they know the verdict of the next hearing, which is due to start in the next week or so. And yeah, now the pressure's off and it's down to them to perform and get points for the club.
I think we've spoken about nervousness and edginess. I think ours has sort of maybe been transferred to them other teams. Forest have still got what we've had to come. In a way, we still don't know what's going to happen with their case or if they're going to be deducted any points. Luton are now on the back foot. They were exuberated. They were sort of confident they seemed in themselves, and they worked out a way how to win games and how to pick up points. And that's a real shot to them that Everton have now got 4 points back, and sort of their hard work in a way has sort of been undone. And I was watching Luton last night against Manchester City. Obviously, it's a bit of a skewed case with a 6-2 against City, but they just look a team that sort of lost a little bit of belief, and they've been slapped against City really, as a lot of teams do. But I think Everton are really in the box seat now, so I think it'll be interesting to see going forward, as we just mentioned. Even selection-wise, we'll come on to that. Maybe he might go for the Onana in the midfield, rather than obviously went for James Garner and Idrissa Gana Gueye in midfield. So it'll be interesting to see if the selection frees up certain places a bit more attacking football to just go and win games or go and get that second goal, rather than sitting back and maybe holding on to the points out of fear, in a way.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with him. I think Brentford will be the ones feeling it the most now. I think it was Christian Nogard, their captain, came out and said that these points deductions, they affect people's lives, they affect people's jobs, etc. Stuff that has been going on at Everton for months and months, and nobody's really, not care, but no one's really pressed attention to what was going on at Everton with the points deduction, how it's affecting our players, our staff, our fans, everyone. But now, obviously, Brentford have come out and you mentioned it in Christian Nogard, but they'll also now be thinking, oh, we need to get a few wins because we've been dragged into this. And they'll argue through no fault of their own, but we got dragged into it through no fault of our staff, as in like our coaches, staff and players. They were 7 or 8 points clear at the time when the deduction was imposed on the club. But I think selection-wise, will it make Dice change? I think he'll make him be maybe a bit more reserved with injuries. If there's anyone that's kind of rushing back, he may give them a game or so. Or the Corey may have not started against Palace if we'd have had them back then. But it's one of them. Everton don't need to... Everton can't think that the battle, let's say here, the relegation is won, and that the safe. Everton needs to still think, oh, we need quite a few wins here, and they need to start winning games of football as quick as they can, because if not, they'll get dragged into it from the footballing side, and then that will be down to them. So as I said before, it's down on the players to now perform on the pitch and win games of football to then be enough points clear for when the second breach comes and the second hearing comes, and let's say we get deducted based on Paul Joyce's article between 1 to 3 points. Let's say you are still then clear of Nottingham Forest, who will then probably appeal their breach if they were to be deducted points.
Yeah, I think it's important not to be complacent now that the players don't think we've had this big relief, we've got these 4 points back and it's all okay, because we're still very much in a relegation fight, but us in a lot better position than what we were a week ago. But I think it's important that these games coming up, especially we'll go on to now, West Ham at home, I think that's a really winnable game. And for a team that are sort of always 7th to 10th, West Ham seem like a team that are in turmoil constantly. They got a good win against Brentford 4-2 on Monday, but the swords seem constantly out for David Moyes, no matter what he does at West Ham. And I can understand it from the perspective of a West Ham fan, maybe, that you might think they've taken West Ham as far as they can go, and it's not really the football that sets like a fire in your belly. It's not really football that you want to watch, but at times it's effective, and I think it'll be interesting to see how both teams set up on Saturday. It'll be interesting to see your perspective on our midfield, to be honest, because he seems to be pulling Onana back, even though we obviously come on against City, come on against Brighton, so it'll be interesting to see what he does there.
I think obviously we're still to see if Idrissa Gana Gueye is fit. He went off with a bit of a tightness, I think it was in his hamstring or in his calf. I'm not completely sure. But Amadou Onana has to start for Everton. I think he's Everton's best or one of the top two in terms of outfield players. I think him and Jared Branthwaite are probably a class above everyone else in terms of quality and talent, although you can then say James Tarkowski, for how professional he is, how reliable, how solid he is defensively, he's one of Everton's most important players. But in terms of raw talent, I think Onana and Branthwaite are so not clear, but so good that they should be playing together, I think, every week in terms of, obviously, Jan Branthwaite, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. And Amadou Onana, for me, should be in there with the Corey every single game that he is available, obviously, when he's performing like he has been the past few weeks, when he's had cameos off the bench against City, against Palace, against Brighton. I think he's done enough to deserve a start. I don't think it's also fair on Idrissa Gana Gueye to be playing him every single week at his age, coming off an injury already that dragged into the Africa Cup of Nations, now with a bit of a niggle. I think it wouldn't be fair on him to keep flogging him minutes. I think like happened probably with Ashley Young at the start of the season, he was just getting flogged with minutes and he probably got ran into the ground a bit and his performances didn't help either. But I think when he came back then from his injury, although he was playing a bit further forward, he was being much more better for the team. I think his contribution to the team was much better defensively. It made us more solid when we probably needed it the most, when we went to Fulham with one centre midfielder, when we then went to City, or when we played Tottenham, these games. But yeah, in terms of the midfield, for me, Amadou Onana and Doucouré start every game that they can. And then the other space in that midfield is between James Garner and Idrissa Gana Gueye, and you would probably approach it whatever the game needs. So, for example, let's say Saturday against West Ham, we may need to be better on the ball or cleverer on the ball or kind of more astute to try and maybe break West Ham down. So then you would probably go for a James Garner and try and be better in possession. But when you go away to Man United the following week, you may then play Idrissa Gana Gueye because you need to be much more kind of in the battle. You need to defend more, you need to win the ball back much more, you need to try and create turnovers or try and create transitions, and that's where Idrissa Gana Gueye is at his best, I think. So it is depending on the game, but for me, yeah, Onana and Doucouré, first two names in that midfield.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be honest. And I think West Ham at home is a real opportunity for 3 points before we go to United away. It's, to be honest, I'd say it's a must-win game just because we haven't won that Brighton game and we haven't won the Palace game the week before. I think the West Ham game becomes a must-win game, and for that reason, I'd play Amadou Onana instead of Idrissa Gana Gueye alongside James Garner for that sort of passing ability and the progressiveness forward. We need to create more chances. We need to start scoring goals, and I think obviously we've mentioned again the nervousness and edginess. Hopefully Goodison's a more positive place on Saturday, and I think if we score it early, I think we can really do a job on West Ham. I think their fan base is like sort of the opposite to ours at times. Like, they're very volatile at times, their fan base, and I think they can turn on their players. And I think they could certainly, a lot of them are always calling for Moises Head, as I've already mentioned. So I think it's a real opportunity for us to go for 3 points, and then that's sending us possibly 8 points above Luton. And I think if you look at that from their perspective, they think that's an absolute mountain to climb, even if we do possibly get more points taken off ourselves. And obviously the United game after that, it's a tough one. You don't know what Man United are going to turn up. They've just been beaten 2-1 against Fulham. Kersey Alex Iwobi's goal, funnily enough. But so I think you take 3 points from this one. The United one is sort of not a free hit, but it's a game where you can sort of pass us by in a way.
The thing with that though, I don't think this Everton team will fear United, because I think United are the second. They've conceded the second most shots in the division. I think after Sheffield United, when they came to Goodison, the first game after the 10-point deduction, they got lucky with an absolute wonder goal from Garnacho. No, what I mean is they found themselves with that early wonder strike from Garnacho, and then that kind of unsettled Everton. But Everton were really, really unlucky not to go in at half-time level or even 2-1 up. I think Gary Neville mentioned that Everton should have been 2 or 3-1 up at half-time, he thought. And then second half, early doors in the second half, we gave a pen away, and then the game was gone. But there was so many positives from that performance for Everton to then take into Old Trafford. I think the unrest around Man United, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe, since he came in, he's trying to change the structure of the club, and I think that seems to be improving for them. But Ten Hag, he seems to have lost his dressing room, or he's on the verge of losing the dressing room. So I don't think there'll be no fear in the Everton side to go to Old Trafford and trouble Man United and get something out of them, because United will allow you a lot of chances, and they do have their days where Bruno Fernandes isn't at it. Marcus Rashford lately, he doesn't really seem at it. Garnacho's having a bit of a bad day, and Højlund's out now, who's been an extraordinary forward for Man United. So they don't really have a centre forward that can hurt you. And luckily for us, Anthony Martial is out.
Yeah, very luckily for us actually. But I think another position that's been interested in late to the right back. Obviously, he's persisted with Ben Godfrey, and I think Godfrey's like a bit of a strange player at times. You look at him and you think, yeah, he's quite good. He's got all the assets to be a great defender at least. And other times he makes rash decisions, gives away silly fouls. But I think lately he has been decent. And I think the fact Nathan Patterson played for the under-21s against Fulham the other night sort of tells you where he is in Sean Dyche's pecking order. Also, Chimiti played, scored twice and got sent off in that game. And Michael Keane also played, another one that's sort of out of favour at the moment. But
he also scored, didn't he?
Yeah, he also scored, actually, he did. You're right. And I don't know where Coleman's at fitness-wise. Obviously, he struggled with fitness. So I think at the moment, Ben Godfrey's his first choice. Would you persist with that? Or would you maybe go for a Patterson that is possibly better going forward against West Ham?
I'd like to see Patterson play against West Ham. I think the game kind of demands us to have a fullback that tries to bump past the winger, tries to create a bit of overload on the wing or overlap and maybe try and attack through that right hand side, because on the left we know Michalenko, how good he is defensively. His game isn't really going forward. He can put a good cross, and I think there has been times where his delivery is really improved. I think he put one in Saturday. I think it was first touch on that first half. Lewis Dunk just got ahead him before Calvert-Lewin, and that was a unbelievable ball from him. So he has got that look, but he's not kind of like Leighton Baines or Luka Dean, where you know all game it's going to be trouble for opposition defender because they were so good going forward. And you need somebody like that in Patterson, who's not obviously at that level, but can cause opposition defenders a bit more trouble going forward for Everton. And Ben Godfrey, he's a utility player for certain scenarios, but I don't think Saturday is one of them scenarios that will suit Ben Godfrey's game.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think I'd maybe give Patterson the chance, and depending on how the game goes, see how he gets on. And then if you need it, sure enough, maybe bring on a Godfrey as well. But I think if I want to move on to the other teams around us now. So Luton play Villa at home, and I think that's another massive weekend for Everton. I think Villa, fourth flying this season. He had a bit of a stuttery patch, but they have done well of late. And I think Luton's belief's going to be drained now. I think I watch Luton, and belief is what they've been feeding off. Belief's what's been pushing them forward, really. And I think if they get beat against Villa and we win, I just can't see anything but us just moving further and further forward.
I think good thing for Everton is if they win, let's say if we were to beat West Ham, we put all the pressure on Luton because they're the late kick-off. So by the time they kick off, they already know what score was Everton. If we, let's say, get beat against West Ham, then Luton have got an opportunity to cut the gap down to 1 point again, and that gives them real. And you'd argue then if we get beat, let's say at 4:45 by a 5:30, you'd argue the momentum is back with Luton because they win. They go 1 point behind us, and they still got to play us at Luton, and with Everton potentially receiving a second point deduction later in the season. So I think that's why this game is so important for Everton. Win, stay away from Luton, Forest, Brentford. See if you can get above Palace, who've got a difficult game the weekend, and just keep performing. That's all Everton can do now. It's in Everton's hands. Everton just need to start winning games of football, get on a decent little run of form, and then they'll be absolutely fine. We won't be talking for much longer about them teams below us, in the relegation battle.
And obviously the other fixtures as well. You've got Brentford are playing Chelsea at home, and I think that's sort of one of them fixtures. It's hard to predict. It depends what Chelsea turn up. I think they'll be a little bit deflated, obviously, of what happened last weekend. And obviously then you've got Nottingham Forest that host Liverpool as well. And I think Liverpool play again tonight as we're recording, so that's 3 games in 6-7 days.
With a really injury-hit squad, so.
with a really injury hit squad, but probably them youngsters that they've got that are going to be full of belief again. And I think you'd probably expect Liverpool to at least get a point at Forest or win the game. It's still big for them. So I think they're two where certainly got the easier game this weekend out of all the relegation hopefuls. So what about a prediction then for Everton?
Well, on the post-match show on the Patreon, I said Everton 3-1. And I'm going to stick with that. I think Everton will have no pressure in the game. I think in terms of the points deduction, obviously they'll have the pressure of going to win the game and the fans will be behind them. But I think Everton will be lifted. There'll be a much better mood around the place. And I don't see why Everton can't go and maybe win the game, maybe score an early goal, and then West Ham have got to come at you, and it's a much better game for them. So yeah, going for Everton, win 3-1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for 1-0 Everton, and I think Calvert-Lewin might finally break his goal scoring duck. The last time he scored was against West Ham, so I think maybe that's sort of an omen for him.
Yeah,
Hopefully. So I think, yeah, well, we've got both gone for the 3 points. Is anything else you want to add before we finish?
No, I think just anyone that is going the game on Saturday, just make sure that you do obviously support the team as we always do. We know we do that as fans. I think it's been a good week for Everton. Hopefully we can make it even better, getting 3 points, and then I think Everton will be really looking upwards in the table.
Yeah, so that was the Final Whistle show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and comment your opinions as well. And if you like our content, head over to www.bullensview.co.uk, and you can also view our Patreon as well. Thanks a lot.